Okay, learner, buckle up because today we are diving into some choppy waters, election integrity, to be precise.
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
Sounds like a fun time.
right. It always is.
Mm-hmm.
This all stems from a viewer submission, actually. You sent over a YouTube video breaking down some pretty bold claims by Marjorie Taylor Greene about, get this, Dominion voting machines.
Dominion voting machines. Always a recipe for, shall we say, lively discussion.
You said it. And this one is a doozy expert speaker. Are you ready to fire up those logic circuits and dissect this thing?
Absolutely. Let's unpack this digital dilemma, shall we? Always fascinating, this intersection of technology and politics, right? Public trust thrown in the mix.
It's a recipe for, well,
Exactly. And this one has all the ingredients for a real head scratcher.
Okay, so to set the stage, Greene is alleging that a voter in her district tried to vote for her, and Trump naturally, but the Dominion machine, well, it allegedly had other plans.
Yeah, so the video describes a voter whose votes supposedly kept getting switched on the machine, even after reviewing that paper printout. The one
To double check.
exactly for just this sort of situation. And yet,
Okay, so that's a pretty serious accusation right there, but here's the real kicker. She's basing all of this on, wait for it, a social media post.
not exactly what you'd call ironclad evidence, right? I mean, we've all seen things on social media, but that doesn't make them, well,
Truthful or accurate.
precisely. And this is where it gets really interesting from a, shall we say, legal standpoint. Remember what happened with Fox News and Newsmax back in 2020? Similar accusations about Dominion voting machines, massive lawsuits. I think Fox had to cough up almost $1 billion.
Ouch. That's got to hurt, even for a media giant like Fox. What does that kind of legal precedent mean for Greene, who, at least according to this video, is relying on a random social media post as her smoking gun?
Yeah, the video throws around terms like negligent liability, reckless disregard for the truth, even defamation. We're talking about a whole heap of legal trouble, especially for someone in her position, a public figure with a platform.
So to use that really cliche but fitting analogy, it's like yelling fire in a crowded theater when you haven't even, checked for smoke.
Exactly. You don't do, especially when you have that kind of influence.
Yeah.
People listen, they react.
Right. And this is where the lack of, well, any fact-checking on Greene's part is particularly concerning. The video points out that she herself admitted to not even reaching out to election officials or anything before going public with this story.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's surprising, to say the least. I mean, she represents this district, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be like the easiest thing to at least check to see if there's any truth to this claim?
You would think. The video makes a good point about how elections, they actually have a lot of safeguards in place. You've got poll workers, party observers, even rules about officials documenting any irregularities. It's not some big mystery,
Right. Paper trail, witnesses, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly. So it seems like, at least on the surface, a little due diligence was skipped over here.
It does make you wonder what the, shall we say, the motivation behind all this is. Is it really about election integrity or something else? But that's a whole other deep dive, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. A story for another day.
Right.
But since we are talking about Georgia and elections, it's worth mentioning those changes they made to their election laws after 2020. It was a whole thing.
It was a whole thing indeed. Lots of debate and controversy. And this video actually highlights 2 very recent court rulings related to those changes that I think you'll find interesting.
Oh, do tell.
Well, the first ruling actually upheld Georgia's process for certifying election results, basically making sure things are official and above board. But here's the twist. The second ruling overturned specific rules that were pushed by, shall we say, election deniers, rules that were seen as potentially restricting people's access to vote.
Interesting. So it's like the courts are trying to walk this tightrope right, ensuring that elections are secure and on the up and up, but also protecting everyone's right to vote. A delicate balancing act.
Absolutely. And a perfect example of how this whole issue, it's not black and white. There are a lot of nuances, a lot of perspective.
And a lot of passion. Let's not forget that. But at the heart of it all, it really underscores just how crucial it is to have a functioning and trustworthy electoral system, especially with all this distrust swirling around.
No kidding. If people lose faith in the process itself, why would they even bother to participate? It's like the bedrock of our entire democracy is at stake.
It's true. And, this whole situation with Greene and the Dominion claims, it got me thinking, it's almost like a case study in how easily misinformation can spread, even in this day and age when we're supposedly drowning in information.
Drowning in information, but starving for truth. I like that. It's very poetic and sadly very accurate.
Right. It's like we're bombarded with stuff constantly from every direction. But how much of it is actually, well, reliable?
Exactly. And the thing is, we're naturally inclined to believe information that already aligns with our existing beliefs. Confirmation bias, they call it. Even if the evidence is shaky, if it fits into our worldview, we're more likely to give it a pass.
Oh, tell me about it. Those echo chambers are comfy places to be, even if they're not exactly reflecting reality.
Precisely. And that's why it's so important to actively seek out diverse viewpoints. Even the ones that make us uncomfortable, the ones we might not agree with. It's about challenging our own biases, not just surrounding ourselves with people who parrot back what we already think.
Preach. And it's not just about who we listen to, but also about how we evaluate information in general. Just because someone shouts the loudest on social media or has the most retweets doesn't automatically make them right.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Critical thinking is key, folks. It's about looking beyond the surface, questioning what we see and hear, and remembering that words have power, especially when it comes to something as fundamental as our elections.
So true. And speaking of consequences, let's bring it back to Greene and her Dominion claims for a second. What kind of impact could her statements have, even if they turn out to be completely unfounded?
Well, the most obvious one is a further erosion of public trust in elections. Imagine you're a voter who already has some doubts about the system, right? Then you see a prominent figure, someone you might even respect, making these claims about voting machines being rigged based on a random social media post, no less.
It just plays into those existing anxieties and fears, even if it's not true.
Precisely. And the more something is repeated, especially by someone in a position of authority, the more people tend to believe it, regardless of the evidence. It's a dangerous cycle.
It's like that old saying, a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting its shoes on. Except in our digital world, that lie can go viral in seconds.
Exactly. And that's why we have to be so careful, so discerning about what we consume and share online. We have a responsibility, each and every one of us, to be good digital citizens.
Okay, so I'm hearing you. Misinformation bad, discerning consumption good. But practically speaking, what can we do to make sure we're not falling for this stuff? It feels like a minefield out there sometimes.
Oh, it definitely can. But there are a few things we can do to navigate that minefield a little more safely. One of the most powerful things is to diversify your news intake. Don't rely on just one or two sources. Explore different news outlets, websites, podcasts, even if they lean in a different direction than you're used to.
So you're saying it's like trying that weird-looking dish at a restaurant.
Yeah.
You might be surprised and find your new favorite.
Exactly. And when you do sample these different sources, pay attention to how they say things, not just what they're saying. What are their biases? Do they fact check? Are they transparent about their sources?
Like being a journalist yourself, checking their credentials before you trust them.
Exactly. But let's be real, we often come across information in tiny little snippets these days. Headlines, tweets, you name it. What about those times when something sounds a little fishy, but you don't exactly have time for a full-blown investigation? Ah yes, the curse of the modern age. Information overload. Well, for those moments when you need a quick gut check, those trusty fact-checking websites are your best friend. Snopes, PolitiFact, factcheck.org. They're like the mythbusters of the internet, debunking those viral claims and rumors.
And they do a great job of breaking down complex topics into something easy to digest. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Plus, they always cite their sources so you can follow the breadcrumbs back to the original information. It's all about transparency, giving you, the reader, the power to decide for yourself.
So it's like being a digital detective, following the clues to the truth.
Precisely. And remember, it's not about being right all the time. It's about having the tools to think critically and to engage in these really important conversations without, resorting to shouting matches and name-calling.
Well said. And at the end of the day, democracy thrives when people feel informed, empowered, and engaged, not overwhelmed, distrustful, and disengaged.
100% agree. It's about creating a culture of informed citizenship where we can debate these complex issues respectfully and thoughtfully, even if we don't always see eye to eye.
Okay, learner. So there you have it. We've waded into the murky waters of election integrity, explored the ever-present challenge of misinformation, and hopefully equip you with some tools to navigate it all. Expert speaker, any final words of wisdom before we surface from this deep dive?
Just remember, Critical thinking, it's not a one-time thing, it's an ongoing process. It's about constantly questioning, evaluating, and being open to changing your mind as new information comes to light. Embrace curiosity, keep an open mind, and never stop learning.
It's all about embracing that growth mindset, always learning and evolving. And for you learner, one final thought to ponder. In this age of information overload, what does informed voting truly mean to you? And how can you ensure your vote is cast based on facts, not fiction? Something to chew on. Until next time, happy learning.